The colony ship Asteria shuddered violently as it entered the atmosphere of Novaterra, alarms blaring throughout its corridors. Captain Elena Rees gripped the command chair, her knuckles white as she barked orders to her panicking crew. "Stabilizers offline. We're losing altitude fast," shouted the navigation officer, his fingers flying across the holographic controls. Elena's mind raced. They had come so far, carrying the hopes and dreams of thousands of colonists in cryosleep. Now it was all falling apart. She made a split-second decision. "Initiate emergency landing protocols. Jettison all non-essential cargo. We need to lighten the load." As the ship plummeted through storm clouds, cargo bays emptied their contents into the alien sky. But it wasn't enough. The Asteria's hull groaned under the strain, pieces of the outer shell tearing away. In the nursery section, 5-year-old Amara huddled in a corner, clutching her stuffed rabbit. The other children cried around her, but she remained silent, her green eyes wide with fear. A violent jolt threw her across the room, and everything went black. When Amara regained consciousness, the world around her was on fire. Smoke filled her lungs as she crawled through the twisted metal of what was once her home. The cries of the other children had gone silent. She called out for her parents, for anyone, but only the crackling of flames answered. Stumbling out of the wreckage, Amara found herself in a strange alien landscape. 2 moons hung in a purple sky, casting an eerie glow over a field of iridescent grass. In the distance, bioluminescent forests pulsed with otherworldly light. Amara wandered aimlessly, shock numbing her to the burns on her arms and the cut on her forehead. She didn't know how long she walked before exhaustion overtook her, and she collapsed in a clearing. As darkness fell, a tall, slender figure emerged from the shadows of the forest. Its skin shimmered like polished obsidian, 4 arms moving with fluid grace as it approached the unconscious child. Golden eyes blinked in surprise at the sight of the small human. Selfor, once a respected scientist of the Zarkali people, now lived in self-imposed exile on this remote world. He had come to investigate the fireball he'd seen streaking across the sky, expecting to find nothing more than space debris. Instead, he found a survivor. Gently, Selfor lifted Amara into his arms. His species had long studied the humans from afar, but he had never been this close to one before. He marveled at her fragility, at the steady rise and fall of her chest as she breathed. "Little one," he whispered in his native tongue, a series of melodic clicks and hums. "What strange twist of fate has brought you here?" As if in response, Amara stirred in her sleep, instinctively curling closer to the warmth of Selfor's body. The alien scientist felt something stir within him, a protective instinct he didn't know he possessed. With a last glance at the burning wreckage in the distance, Selfor turned and carried Amara into the bioluminescent forest. He knew that raising a human child would be challenging, perhaps even dangerous if his people ever discovered what he had done. But in that moment, looking down at the vulnerable creature in his arms, he knew he had no other choice. As they disappeared into the pulsing light of the alien woods, the moons of Novaterra cast long shadows over the crash site. The Asteria, once humanity's hope for a new beginning, lay broken and silent. But unknown to all, a new story was just beginning, one that would reshape the fate of 2 species. In his hidden laboratory deep within the forest, Selfor worked tirelessly to treat Amara's injuries. His knowledge of human physiology was theoretical at best, but he adapted his medical technology as best he could. As dawn broke over Novaterra, Amara opened her eyes for the first time in her new home. She didn't scream when she saw Selfor, which surprised the alien scientist. Instead, she looked at him with curiosity, her green eyes taking in his strange form. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice small and hoarse. Selfor activated his translation device, hoping the girl would understand. "You are safe," he replied, his words converted into human speech. "I found you alone. The others, I'm sorry, little one." Tears welled up in Amara's eyes as the memories came flooding back. "Selfor, unsure how to comfort a human child, awkwardly patted her head with one of his 4 hands. To his surprise, Amara threw her arms around him, sobbing into his shimmering skin. As he held the crying child, Selfo made a silent vow. He would protect this girl, teach her, and help her not just to survive, but to thrive in this alien world. Little did he know that this decision would set in motion events that would change the course of both their species forever. As the twin suns of Novaterra rose and set, days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Selfo's hidden laboratory, nestled deep within the bioluminescent forest, became Amara's new home. The alien scientist, once consumed by his solitary research, found his life transformed by the presence of the human child. Selfo's first challenge was adapting his living space for Amara's needs. He constructed a bed that could support her fragile human frame, synthesized nutrients that matched her dietary requirements, and adjusted the atmospheric controls to mimic Earth's composition. Each solution required him to stretch the limits of his scientific knowledge, but Selfo found himself oddly invigorated by the challenge. Amara, for her part, showed a resilience that continually surprised her alien guardian. Though she often woke in the night, crying out for her lost parents, she approached each day with a curiosity that matched Selfo's own. She asked endless questions about her new world, her green eyes wide with wonder as Selfo explained the strange flora and fauna of Novaterra. "Why do the trees glow?" Amara asked one day, her small hand reaching out to touch a pulsing trunk. Selfo's translation device hummed as he replied, "They absorb energy from the suns during the day, then release it at night. It's how they communicate with each other." Amara's face lit up with excitement. "Can they talk to us too?" The alien scientist chuckled, a sound like chiming bells. "In a way, yes, if we learn to listen." As Amara grew, Selfo began to teach her not just about Novaterra, but about the wider galaxy. He showed her holographic star maps, explained the basics of interstellar travel, and told her stories of the many species that populated the cosmos. Amara absorbed it all with an eagerness that both delighted and saddened Selfo. He knew that one day, her curiosity might lead her to question why they lived in isolation, hidden away from both humans and his own people. One night, as they sat watching the aurora-like lights that often danced across Novaterra's sky, Amara asked the question Selfo had long dreaded. "Sel, why don't we ever see anyone else? Are we the only ones here?" Selfo's golden eyes dimmed slightly as he considered his answer. "We are not alone on this world, little one, but it is complicated. My people, the Zarkali, they do not understand humans as I have come to. And humans, I fear, are not ready to know about us." Amara frowned, processing this information. "But you understand me, and I understand you. Why can't everyone?" The alien scientist sighed, a soft whistling sound. "Fear, Amara. Fear of the unknown, of that which is different. It is a flaw that both our species share." As Amara grew older, Selfo began to train her in the sciences, teaching her to use Zarkali technology and to understand the principles behind it. He marveled at how quickly she grasped complex concepts, her human brain making intuitive leaps that sometimes left even him surprised. By her 10th birthday, as best as Selfo could calculate it, Amara was assisting him in his research, her small hands deftly manipulating holographic interfaces and delicate instruments. She had grown into a curious, intelligent young girl, with a unique perspective that blended human intuition with Zarkali knowledge. But as proud as Selfo was of Amara's progress, he couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. He knew that he couldn't keep her hidden forever. Sooner or later, the wider galaxy would come calling, and Amara would have to face the complexities of her dual heritage. That day came sooner than either of them expected. On a routine expedition to gather samples from a nearby crystal cave, Selfo and Amara encountered something that would shatter their isolated existence: a downed Zarkali scout ship. As they approached the smoking wreckage, Amara's heart raced with excitement and fear. This was her first encounter with other intelligent life besides Sulfur. The ship's hull bore scorch marks from weapons fire, and a lone figure lay sprawled on the ground nearby. Sulfur moved cautiously, his forearms tense and ready for action. "Stay behind me, Amara," he warned. But Amara, driven by a mix of curiosity and compassion, darted forward. "They're hurt," she cried, kneeling beside the injured Zarkali pilot. The alien's golden eyes flickered open, widening in shock at the sight of the human girl. It let out a series of rapid clicks and whistles that Amara recognized as a distress call. Sulfur rushed forward, his own voice rising in an attempt to calm his fellow Zarkali, but it was too late. The pilot had already activated an emergency beacon. As the signal pulsed out into space, Sulfur knew that their peaceful existence was over. He turned to Amara, his golden eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. "We must prepare," he said gravely. "Everything is about to change." Amara nodded, her young face set with a determination that belied her years. Whatever was coming, she knew that the lessons Sulfur had taught her, of science, of compassion, and of bridging the gap between different species, would be put to the test. As the suns set on Novaterra, casting long shadows across the alien landscape, Sulfur and Amara retreated to their hidden home. The galaxy was stirring, and the unique bond between a human girl and her alien guardian was about to face its greatest challenge yet. The years that followed the encounter with the downed Zarkali scout ship were filled with intense preparation and growing tension. Sulfur, knowing that their isolated existence could end at any moment, accelerated Amara's education. The human girl, now a teenager, threw herself into her studies with renewed vigor, understanding the gravity of their situation. Amara's days were filled with rigorous physical training, advanced xenobiology lessons, and intensive study of galactic politics and history. Sulfur pushed her hard, but she met every challenge with determination. Her unique upbringing had given her a perspective that blended human adaptability with Zarkali precision. "Remember, Amara," Sulfur would often say, his golden eyes gleaming with pride and worry, "you are a bridge between two worlds. Your existence challenges everything both species think they know about each other." As she grew, Amara's appearance began to reflect her dual nature. Her black hair took on an iridescent sheen, and her green eyes developed a subtle golden fleck, a result of long-term exposure to Novaterra's unique environment and Zarkali technology. She moved with a fluid grace that mirrored Sulfur's movements, yet retained a distinctly human unpredictability. On her 16th birthday, Sulfur presented Amara with a gift that symbolized her coming of age, a neuro-linked exosuit of his own design. The sleek, silver material adhered to her body like a second skin, enhancing her strength and reflexes while also interfacing directly with her nervous system. "This suit," Sulfur explained as Amara marveled at her reflection, "is a fusion of human and Zarkali technology. Like you, it represents the potential of our species working together." Amara flexed her hands, feeling the power coursing through the suit. "It's incredible, Zal. But why now? Has something changed?" Sulfur's expression grew somber. "I've intercepted transmissions. The Zarkali have not forgotten about the distress signal. They're sending a research vessel to investigate. We must be ready." The news hit Amara like a shock wave. After years of isolation, the outside world was finally encroaching on their sanctuary. A mix of excitement and fear coursed through her. This was the moment she had been preparing for, yet now that it was here, she felt a sudden longing for the simple days of her childhood. In the weeks that followed, Sulfur and Amara worked tirelessly to prepare for the arrival of the Zarkali ship. They developed contingency plans, secured their research, and set up early warning systems around their hidden home. As they worked, Amara couldn't help but notice a change in Sulfur. The alien scientist, usually calm and collected, seemed agitated. His movements were more erratic, and he often fell into long silences, staring off into the distance with a troubled look in his golden eyes. Finally, Unable to bear the tension any longer, Amara confronted her guardian. Xel, what aren't you telling me? There's something more about the Zarkali coming, isn't there? Xelfo let out a long, whistling sigh. You've grown perceptive, little one. Yes, there is more. He hesitated, then continued. The research vessel, it's commanded by Zarleth, my former colleague, and my greatest rival. Amara's eyes widened. In all their years together, Xelfo had rarely spoken of his past among the Zarkali. What happened between you? We had different views on how to approach other species, particularly humans, Xelfo explained, his voice heavy with old regrets. Zarleth advocated for a more aggressive stance, seeing other races as potential threats or resources to be exploited. I argued for cooperation, for learning from one another. Our disagreement, it's what led to my exile here. Amara felt a chill run down her spine. And now he's coming here. Xel, we have to leave. But Xelfo shook his head. No, Amara. Running is not the answer. This is an opportunity, a chance to show that coexistence is possible. You are living proof of that. As the day of the Zarkali ship's arrival drew near, Amara spent hours practicing with her new exosuit, pushing its limits and her own. She pored over star charts, memorized Zarkali protocols, and ran countless simulations of first contact scenarios. The night before the expected arrival, Amara stood at the edge of the bioluminescent forest, looking up at the star-filled sky. Somewhere up there, a ship was approaching, carrying beings who might view her as a curiosity at best, a threat at worst. Xelfo joined her, placing one of his 4 hands gently on her shoulder. Are you ready, Amara? She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything she had learned, everything she represented, settling on her shoulders. As ready as I'll ever be, she replied, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. As the twin moons of Novaterra cast their pale light over the alien landscape, Amara and Xelfo stood side by side, human and Zarkali, guardian and ward, united in their hope for a future where such bonds could be the norm rather than the exception. The stars above seemed to pulse with anticipation, as if the very galaxy was holding its breath. Tomorrow would bring a confrontation years in the making, a meeting that could change the course of 2 species forever. Amara clenched her fists, feeling the responsive surge of her exosuit. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was determined to face them. For Xelfo, for herself, and for the dream of a universe where understanding triumphed over fear. As dawn broke on Novaterra, a new chapter in Amara's extraordinary life was about to begin. The Zarkali ship descended from Novaterra's lavender sky like a metallic leviathan, its sleek hull reflecting the light of the twin suns. Amara and Xelfo watched from the cover of the bioluminescent forest, their hearts racing with a mixture of anticipation and dread. As the ship touched down in a clearing not far from their hidden home, Amara activated her exosuit's stealth mode, her form shimmering slightly as adaptive camouflage kicked in. Xelfo's obsidian skin seemed to absorb the surrounding light, making him nearly invisible in the shadows of the forest. A hatch on the ship's underbelly slid open, and a group of Zarkali emerged. Their movements were precise and military, a stark contrast to Xelfo's more fluid grace. At their head strode a tall figure with piercing silver eyes, Zarleth. He hasn't changed, Xelfo whispered, a note of sadness in his voice. Amara studied the Zarkali commander, taking in his rigid posture and the cold calculation in his gaze. This was the being who had driven Xelfo into exile, who saw other species as threats or resources. She felt a surge of protectiveness towards her guardian and their home. Zarleth's voice rang out, a series of sharp clicks and whistles that Amara's translation implant rendered into words. Spread out, find the source of that distress signal, and be on alert for any anomalies. As the Zarkali soldiers fanned out across the clearing, Amara tensed, ready for action, but Xelfo placed a restraining hand on her shoulder. Not yet, he murmured. We need to understand their intentions first. For hours, they watched as the Zarkeli methodically searched the area, taking samples and readings. Amara's muscles ached from staying still for so long, but her training held. She remained as motionless as the ancient trees around them. As the suns began to set, Zarleth's frustrated voice cut through the gathering twilight. Nothing. No sign of the crashed scout, no unusual readings. It's as if this planet is actively hiding something from us. A younger Zarkali officer approached Zarleth, her movements hesitant. "Commander, we've detected faint energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. They seem to be coming from everywhere." Zarleth's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "It's as if the entire ecosystem is integrated with some kind of technology, but it's so seamlessly blended that our instruments can barely detect it," the officer replied. A cold smile spread across Zarleth's face. "Interesting, very interesting indeed. Prepare the harvesting equipment. If we can't find what we're looking for, we'll take samples of everything. This planet may be more valuable than we realized." Amara felt a chill run down her spine. She turned to Xelthor, her eyes wide with alarm. "They're going to destroy the forest," she whispered. "We have to stop them." Xelthor's golden eyes were filled with conflict. "Amara, if we reveal ourselves now." "If we don't, everything you've worked to protect will be lost," Amara interrupted. "You taught me that sometimes we have to take risks for what's right." After a moment of tense silence, Xelthor nodded. "You're right, little one. It's time." Together, they stepped out of the forest's cover and into the clearing. The reaction from the Zarkali was immediate. Weapons were drawn, and a dozen targeting lasers danced across Amara and Xelthor's forms. Zarleth's silver eyes widened in shock, then narrowed with recognition. "Xelthor," he hissed. "So this is where you've been hiding all these years." His gaze shifted to Amara, and his expression twisted with disgust. "And what abomination is this?" Amara felt a surge of anger at his words, but Xelthor spoke before she could react. "She is the future, Zarleth. Living proof that our species can coexist, can learn from each other." Zarleth laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Coexist? Look around you, old friend. Your future is about to become the past. This planet, with its strange energy, will propel the Zarkali to new heights of power, and no human-loving exile will stand in our way." With a gesture from Zarleth, the Zarkali soldiers opened fire. Amara's exosuit reacted instantly, projecting a shimmering energy shield that deflected the blasts. Xelthor moved with incredible speed, his forearms a blur as he disarmed the nearest soldiers. "Amara, the ship," Xelthor shouted as he grappled with two Zarkali at once. Understanding flashed through Amara's mind. If they could disable the Zarkali ship, they might have a chance to reason with Zarleth, to make him see the value of Novaterra beyond mere resources. She sprinted towards the vessel, her exosuit enhancing her speed and agility. Zarkali soldiers tried to intercept her, but she vaulted over them, using moves that blended human unpredictability with Zarkali precision. As she reached the ship's hull, Amara placed her hand on the smooth metal surface. Her exosuit's neural interface connected with the ship's systems, and suddenly her mind was awash with data. She saw schematics, power distribution networks, weapon systems, all flowing through her consciousness. With a thought, she initiated a cascade failure in the ship's main reactor. Alarms blared as the vessel's lights flickered and died. "No!" Zarleth's enraged cry cut through the chaos of the battle. Amara turned to see the Zarkali commander advancing on her, a terrifying energy weapon clutched in his hands. "You've ruined everything," he snarled. As Zarleth raised his weapon, time seemed to slow. Amara saw Xelthor racing towards her, fear etched on his alien features. She saw the beautiful, fragile ecosystem of Novaterra stretching out around them, pulsing with life and hidden wonders. In that moment, Amara knew that the real battle was just beginning. It wasn't just about protecting this planet or proving the worth of human Zarkali cooperation. It was about forging a new path for both species, one that led away from fear and exploitation and towards understanding and mutual growth. As Zaleth's weapon began to glow with building energy, Amara made a decision. She would not fight fire with fire. Instead, she would use everything Selfo had taught her: compassion, intelligence, and the unique perspective her dual heritage gave her. She deactivated her exosuit's defensive systems and stood tall, facing Zaleth with determination in her eyes. "Wait," she said, her voice calm and clear. "There's something you need to see." Zaleth hesitated, his weapon still trained on Amara. Curiosity warred with anger in his silver eyes. "What trick is this, human?" he snarled. Amara took a deep breath, keenly aware of the tension crackling in the air. Zelfo had reached her side, his golden eyes darting between her and Zaleth with concern. "No tricks," Amara said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Just the truth about Novaterra, about what Zelfo has discovered here. Something that could change everything for both our species." She slowly raised her hand, palm outward, towards the bioluminescent forest. As if responding to her gesture, the trees began to pulse with an intense, rhythmic light. The ground beneath their feet thrummed with energy, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly glow. Zaleth's eyes widened, his weapon lowering slightly as he took in the spectacular display. "What is this?" he demanded, a note of awe creeping into his voice despite himself. Zelfo stepped forward, his voice calm and measured. "This, old friend, is what I've been studying all these years. Novaterra isn't just a planet, it's a vast, interconnected organism. The forest, the crystals, even the atmosphere, they're all part of a planetary consciousness." Amara nodded, building on Selfor's explanation. "And it's been trying to communicate with us. With all of us. The energy signatures your team detected, they're not just random emissions. They're a language, a way for the planet to share its knowledge." She turned to the Zarkali soldiers, who had lowered their weapons, captivated by the pulsing lights of the forest. "Your people have been searching the galaxy for advanced technology, for ways to increase your power. But what if the key to true advancement isn't domination, but cooperation?" Zaleth scoffed, but there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. "Pretty lights and fanciful theories. How does this help the Zarkali?" Amara smiled, a plan forming in her mind. "Let me show you." She turned to Selfor. "The Nexus Chamber. It's time." Selfor's eyes widened in understanding. "Amara, are you sure? It's never been tested with a non-Zarkali." "We don't have a choice," Amara replied, her voice filled with determination. "It's the only way to make them understand." Zelfor nodded solemnly, then addressed Zaleth and his crew. "Follow us, if you truly want to see the potential of this world." Curiosity finally overcame caution, and Zaleth gestured for his team to follow. They trekked through the glowing forest, the Zarkali soldiers murmuring in awe as bioluminescent creatures scurried around them, and strange, ethereal melodies seemed to emanate from the very air. Finally, they reached a clearing where a massive, ancient tree stood. Its trunk was wider than the Zarkali ship, its branches reaching impossibly high into the lavender sky. At its base was an opening, pulsing with soft, inviting light. "This," Salthor explained, "is the nexus of Novaterra's consciousness, a direct link to the planet's vast knowledge and power." Amara stepped forward, her heart pounding. "I'm going to connect with it, to show you what's possible when we work with this world, not against it." Before anyone could object, she entered the opening. Inside, she found herself in a chamber that seemed to exist between realities. Tendrils of light and energy swirled around her, and she felt the weight of an ancient, alien intelligence pressing against her mind. Taking a deep breath, Amara opened herself to Novaterra's consciousness. Immediately, her mind was flooded with images, sensations, and knowledge beyond anything she had ever experienced. She saw the history of the planet, stretching back millions of years. She felt the intricate connections between every living thing on Novaterra, a web of life more complex and beautiful than she could have imagined. And then she saw possibilities. Futures where Zarkali technology merged seamlessly with Novaterra's organic systems, creating advancements that neither could achieve alone. She saw human colonies working in harmony with the planet and its guardians, a model of cooperation that could spread throughout the galaxy. With an effort that strained every fiber of her being, Amara channeled these visions outward, projecting them to Selfor, Zarleth, and the others waiting outside. In the clearing, the Zarkali gasped as the visions washed over them. They saw through Amara's eyes, felt what she felt. For the first time, they understood the true potential of Novaterra, not as a resource to be exploited, but as a partner in their evolution. Zarleth stumbled backward, overwhelmed by the experience. This changes everything, he whispered. Inside the Nexus, Amara pushed harder, determined to show them the full scope of what was possible. But the strain was becoming too much. Her human physiology, even enhanced by Selfor's exosuit, was not designed to channel this much energy. Alarms blared in her mind as her vital signs began to fluctuate dangerously. The connection was killing her, but she couldn't let go. Not yet, not until she was sure they understood. Outside, Selfor realized what was happening. "Amara," he cried, rushing towards the Nexus. "You have to stop, it's too much." But Amara couldn't hear him. She was lost in the torrent of information, her consciousness stretched to its breaking point. As her vision began to darken, she had one last desperate thought. "Please, let this be enough, let them understand." And then, everything went black. Darkness enveloped Amara, a void so complete it seemed to swallow all sensation. For a moment that felt like eternity, she floated in nothingness, untethered from her body and the world she knew. Then, like a distant star growing brighter, awareness began to return. First came sound, a steady, rhythmic pulsing that reminded her of a heartbeat, then sensation, a warmth that seemed to cradle her entire being. Finally, light seeped into her consciousness, and Amara opened her eyes. She found herself suspended in a cocoon of bioluminescent energy, deep within the heart of Novaterra's Nexus. Tendrils of light danced across her skin, and she could feel the planet's vast consciousness gently supporting her mind, healing the damage done by the overwhelming connection. "Welcome back, child of two worlds," a voice echoed in her mind. It was unlike anything Amara had ever heard, ancient, multi-layered, and filled with wisdom beyond human comprehension. "You have shown great courage and compassion, but your task is not yet complete." With a gasp, Amara's memories came flooding back. The confrontation with Zarleth, her desperate gamble to show the Zarkali the truth about Novaterra. "Did it work?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Did they understand?" The presence in her mind seemed to smile. Seeds of understanding have been planted, but seeds need nurturing to grow. Your people, both your peoples, stand at a crossroads. The path forward must be chosen, not forced. Slowly, gently, Amara felt herself being guided back to the surface. As she emerged from the Nexus, she blinked in the bright light of Novaterra's twin suns. Selfor was there immediately, gathering her into his 4 arms with a sound that was half sob, half laugh. "Amara, we thought we'd lost you," he said, his golden eyes shimmering with emotion. As her vision cleared, Amara saw the clearing was filled with activity. Zarkali soldiers and scientists moved about with purpose, but their weapons were holstered. Some were taking readings of the bioluminescent plants, while others were in deep discussion with each other, gesturing excitedly at holographic displays. Zarleth approached, his silver eyes regarding Amara with a mix of awe and uncertainty. "What you showed us, it's beyond anything we imagined. The potential here, the knowledge," he trailed off, shaking his head in wonder. Amara stood, supported by Selfor. She felt different, stronger, more connected to the world around her. "Then you understand why this place must be protected. Why cooperation is the key, not conquest." Zarleth nodded slowly. I believe I'm beginning to. But change won't come easily. There are many among our people who will resist, who will see this as a threat to our way of life. Then we'll face that challenge together, Amara said, her voice filled with determination. She turned to Xelthor. You've spent years studying Nova Terra. You understand both worlds. Will you help bridge the gap? Xelthor's eyes shimmered with pride. Of course, little one. It seems my exile has prepared me for a greater purpose than I ever imagined. Over the next few days, as the Zarkali ship was repaired, plans were made. Zarleth would return to the Zarkali homeworld with news of their discovery, advocating for a new approach to interstellar relations. Xelthor would go with him, his unique perspective and deep knowledge of Nova Terra crucial in convincing the Zarkali leadership. And Amara, her path was perhaps the most challenging of all. As a living bridge between human and Zarkali, between the organic and the technological, she would become an ambassador not just for Nova Terra, but for a new way of thinking about the galaxy and its myriad species. On the day of departure, Amara stood at the edge of the clearing, watching as final preparations were made. Her exosuit hummed softly, now permanently bonded to her body and enhanced by Nova Terra's energy. She could feel the planet's pulse beneath her feet, a constant reminder of the interconnectedness of all things. Xelthor approached, his expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. Are you ready, Amara? Once we leave, everything changes. The galaxy will know about you, about this place. There's no going back. Amara took a deep breath, looking out at the bioluminescent forest that had been her home for so long. I'm ready, she said, her voice steady. This is what you prepared me for, Xel. To be a bridge, to show that understanding and cooperation are possible. As they boarded the Zarkali ship, Amara felt a surge of emotions, fear, excitement, determination. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges she could scarcely imagine. But she was not alone. She carried with her the strength of her human heritage, the knowledge imparted by Xelthor, and the wisdom of Nova Terra itself. The ship's engines hummed to life, and Amara watched through a viewport as the surface of Nova Terra fell away. As they broke through the atmosphere and into the star-filled expanse of space, she placed her hand against the cool metal of the ship's hull. This is just the beginning, she whispered, a smile spreading across her face. There's a whole galaxy out there, waiting to learn what we've discovered, and I'm going to show them. As the Zarkali ship accelerated into the depths of space, Amara knew that the greatest adventure of her life was just beginning. She was no longer just a human girl raised by an alien, nor merely a scientific curiosity. She was a symbol of hope, a bridge between worlds, and a harbinger of a new era of galactic cooperation. The stars stretched into lines of light as the ship entered hyperspace, carrying Amara, Xelthor, and the promise of a brighter future towards the heart of the galaxy. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Amara was ready to face them, armed with a unique perspective that only her extraordinary life could have given her. And somewhere behind them, on a small bioluminescent planet, Nova Terra pulsed with ancient wisdom and new possibilities, waiting for the day when its message of harmony would spread throughout the stars.